Hello and welcome to our somewhat delayed Confessions podcast, an audio array of terrible tales from the discerning Radio 2 listener. This week's concise collection, just see what you think of this lot. A pungent punch palaver, a carefully kept collectible catastrophe, it's nice, and some noisy nude nuisance. Just the three, because there are only 4 shows, and we only do them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but then you know all that. Who will you forgive? Here it all comes. So this is Radio 2, it's a Drive Time Confessions, 19 minutes to 6 o'clock. If you miss any, don't forget the Confessions podcast. You can download that every single Friday. What do we have here? This is from Dave. Dave, thank you. My confession harks back 18 years, Father Simon, to a quiet Buckinghamshire village, and I'll set the scene. It was the summer of 1995. The weather was hot, hot, hot. I was back home from university for the summer holidays, as was my younger sister. It was one Tuesday it was very precise, when my parents said the words that every young person in their early 20s can only dream of. Kids, we're off on holiday for 2 weeks. You're in charge of the house. And then, according to Dave, feel free to have friends round if you want.
Yeah.
Already, you know
Yeah.
exactly where this confession is heading. My sister and I were obviously very excited about the prospect of having our own house for a couple of weeks, and it seemed that our parents had also given us the green light for a party. So literally seconds after our parents left for the airport, my sister and I started the organisation for the house party of the century. It was decided that we would invite a combined total of 30 of our closest friends for a barbecue in the garden, along with usual student music, a Blur, Oasis, that kind of thing, and student booze. So the night of the event finally arrived, and the weather was perfect. So perfect, in fact, that as last-minute decision, it was decided to make some refreshing, cooling punch for the guests on their arrival. This was the decision that was to have far-reaching consequences. Firstly, a container for the punch had to be found, and at the time, my parents owned a very large white metal bread bin, and it was decided that this would be a perfect vessel to house the concoction. We then emptied the entire contents of my parents' drinks cabinet into the bread bin, after removing the bread, obviously, and topped it up with various fruit juices and ice, and as a finishing touch, we cut up some fruit and improvised with some glacier cherries. To our surprise, upon tasting it, we discovered it was delicious, strong, but fruity and refreshing. In fact, it was perfect. At around 7:30, the first guest... Well, how do you think this is going to end up, by the way? Just a guess. At around 7:30, the first guest started to arrive, and upon tasting the punch, all agreed that it was a taste sensation. For the first 45 minutes or so, everything went as planned. However, as time went on, my sister and I started to notice that there were a few unfamiliar faces around for this party. Sure enough, by 9 p.m, there were far more in my parents' bungalow than we had planned. Around 190, to be precise.
In a bungalow?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the garden.
Okay.
And the drive. Not only this, but some of the uninvited individuals were the sort of partygoers insurance companies love. Think breakages, ruined carpets, smashed windows, basically troublemakers. One guest in particular, Gaz, was a notorious individual. This party took place, you should know, in the days before Facebook and other social media, but still the word had spread that this was the place to be above all others. All these extra mouths meant that the punch had a very limited lifespan, and by around 10 o'clock there were cries from the kitchen of, Dave, the punch has run out. Didn't change that. Changed almost all of the names, but not that one. We need some more, please. What was particularly galling, I thought anyway, was the cries were from the uninvited troublemakers, the cheek of it. Anyways, previously stated, we'd already used all the booze in my parents' drinks cabinet, so the prospect of more punch looked bleak. It was then I had my own eureka moment. Hanging in my wardrobe was a bag of home brew, which had literally been there for months, as it tasted so foul, not even a poor student would drink it. I could use this and teach all the uninvited a lesson, I thought. I immediately acted on this thought and fetched the bread bin from the kitchen where it was residing, took it to my room and poured the disgusting brown sludge into it. Unfortunately, the size of the bread bin meant that it was still only half full. At this point, we needed to improvise and fast. So, from the depths of the fridge and other cupboards, we found a pint or so of chicken stock, a generic blackcurrant drink, think of the whole bottle, a small bottle of red food colouring, and some mouldy avocados. The compost heap provided some rotting bananas, mouldy oranges, and it was all bulked up rather splendidly with decomposing grass cuttings. And, you should know, a jar of fish paste. A coup de grace, I think. I subsequently added a lot more ice and glacier cherries and returned the punch to the kitchen before announcing that there was now more for consumption. We then positioned ourselves in the kitchen and watched as guests ladled a liquid masquerading as punch into their glasses. No one noticed the odd mixture, and the only comments were, tastes a bit different, but still amazing.
What is that?
That was a great
They
voice.
couldn't really
What is that?
They couldn't really speak straight. They were
No,
tired.
clearly not.
They
No.
were tired.
No.
Now, at this juncture, I should really point out that our closest friends, the invited, were made aware of the situation, therefore did not consume the warm brown sludge, which was red in places. The whole situation was amazing. Justice had been done with added entertainment. The evening ran its course, and by 3 a.m, the bungalow was empty. Next morning, I woke up to broken glass everywhere, black carpets, and a huge hole in the dining room door, which was rumoured to have been Gaz, the uninvited's handiwork. I entered the kitchen to find the aforementioned Gaz trying to rehydrate himself by reaching into the bread bin and sucking on the pieces of fruit, which had been marinating in the remnants of the brown sludge for at least 8 hours. This, we concluded, was karma. So, Father Simon, I don't seek forgiveness from the guests, who had the cheek to moan that the free booze had run out at the party that they weren't even invited to, and certainly not from Gaz the housebreaker. But I do need to ask forgiveness from my family, friends, and anybody else who has since had a sandwich, a piece of toast, or any other bread-based product which had its origins in the now slightly stained off-white bread bin. I'm truly sorry for what you may or may not have consumed. Well, it's the kind of confession to make parents shiver. Just never set off by saying, "It's yours, help yourself." Anyway, what do you think, Susan?
I would have thought they were asking for trouble, though, giving the uninvited guests more alcohol. I mean, the homebrew could have led to even more stains on the carpet
Yes.
and all sorts of other stuff. So, I sort of think it was a bit odd, really. I mean, it would have been better, surely, just to say, we've run out of booze, the party's over, off you go. Or go and get your own booze. I would have thought that would have been more sensible.
And so?
And then, so in that case, I just don't think it was a very clever move, personally. But I don't think there was any long-term harm done. So, Dave, I'm going to forgive you.
That's very understanding. And when your kids have a party, when you go away, just remind you of this. What do you say?
Well, I say if you're silly enough to say to your children, we're off on holiday for a week, and by the way, the house is yours, then you deserve everything you get, frankly. I don't buy the fact that...
Do you think the parents were thick?
No, I think the parents didn't say that. That's what I think. I think
Yes.
Dave has made up the fact that they said that. I think, basically, as Rebecca says, this stems from the fact that this guy didn't have the nerve to tell Gaz and his mates to leave. So he decides to make them this awful cocktail of whatever it was. Also, bluntly, cocktails, this proves it doesn't really matter what you put in. All those books written about how to make cocktails, doesn't really matter. You can put enough fruit in there and everyone goes, oh, actually, this is very good. No, it doesn't. You just throw anything in there that's alcoholic and fruit and suddenly you're a genius. And also, you're putting it in a bread bin. Who thinks bread bin? To make, put it in the washing up bowl, at least. That's the first thing. At least that's had contact with... What are you putting it in the bread bin for?
Calm down.
Anyway, I'm going to say... I don't know what I'm going to... Not forgive.
Not forgive.
Because I'm in that kind of mood.
Father Simon and the Diligent Assembly. Oh, by the way, we welcome Brother Nigel back for an occasional Thursday foray into the world of forgiveness.
Thank you. It's novice night, really, and I quite like that.
Okay, novice night.
Learning from the masters.
That's very good. So Josh says, the Amsterdam pins in the trousers confession. Remember that? Reminded me, it's spurred.
That was the best one we've done, isn't it?
It spurred an awful lot. You've broken the mic.
I did. I broke the mic because it was so funny.
The Amsterdam pins in the trousers confession reminded me of something which occurred during an 18-month project I worked on back in the 1990s. In fact, I'm not writing about that zip incident. It really isn't suitable for national radio, but it did get me thinking about the project as a whole and what a good time I had until I remembered Torquay. I was working for a large telecommunications company. It's 1994. I was seconded onto a project to introduce a new computer system into the organisation's warehouses. Bear with me, it gets better. It was a fantastic opportunity for me. I'd always been keen on a career in IT. It hasn't got better yet. No. So I thought this might be the opening I needed. More importantly, though, I was to be away from home from Monday to Friday every week. This meant I would have 4 evenings a week to myself. Now, I love my wife and kids, but this was...
Obviously, yeah.
However,
obviously,
this was too good to pass up. I was teamed up with a chap called Lloyd, with whom I hit it off immediately. We had quite a routine, pubs and pinball until closing time, a takeaway somewhere nearby, and then a walk back to the hotel wherever we happened to be working that week. So the microphone's collapsed.
But of course he misses his family.
In fact, on the walk, he picked up the phone and he said, I'm missing you very much.
Yeah.
Enormously, yeah.
Just back for a nightcap. I think the expression is work hard and play hard, which we did very well. Most of our nights are faded memories, but Torquay is clearly imprinted on my mind. We were booked into a small hotel. It wasn't an expensive 5-star accommodation, nor was it cheap and nasty. But in this way, it had a proper reception, but no ensuite bathrooms, both of which are important, as you will see. The evening in question was typical up to a point. We visited a local watering hole, enjoyed some food from the local late-night chippy, missed our families, and then went back to our beds. A pressing need to relieve myself woke me up in the early hours of the morning. I remember stumbling around my room, confused that there appeared to be no door to the bathroom, till I realised that there was in fact no bathroom for my personal use. It was along the landing. I wobbled out of my bedroom in a sleepy haze. I found the door I was looking for. Everything was fine. It all flowed from there. A few minutes later, I tottered back down to the corridor to find my bedroom door had locked behind me. I tried again, and it was definitely locked. Further analysis of the situation revealed that I was completely naked.
Oh, great.
I clearly had thought through the consequences of nudity before collapsing into bed that night. There was only one solution. I went downstairs, which led to the reception, clutching, and began ringing the bell on the desk. I'm not... Anyone there? I'm not sure what reaction I expected from the staff on finding a naked man ringing for attention, but it didn't really matter, as there was no response. Now what, I thought. I went back up to the corridor, briefly considered sleeping on the stairs. But after a trial lie down, I knew it would be far too uncomfortable.
Excellent.
Then a flash of inspiration hit me. Lloyd would help me out, of course. Why hadn't I thought of this before? I shuffled down to his room and knocked on the door. "Hello," said the just-awake voice. "I've locked myself out of my room." "Right, who is it?" I should have realised what was happening. All the clues were there. The chain came off the door. I'll be found now, I thought. The door creaked open, and there stood a slightly older chap in what looked like a wee Willy Winky nightshirt, ironically. I'd never seen him before. Never, ever seen him before. He took one look at me and slammed the door in my face. Quite right, too, really. Next time I got the right door, and I tried again. Knock, knock, knock. "Lloyd?" "Yeah." "I've got no clothes on." "Right."
That's your opening line. "Lloyd, I've got no clothes on."
Open up.
At least he told him.
"Can I stay in your room?" "Oh, OK." Anyway, if that was the end of it, Father Simon, I'd have nothing else to seek forgiveness for, unless it was from Lloyd. No, the enormity of what happened revealed itself as I walked through the ground floor reception the following morning, looking at the street outside through a large plate glass window. The reception, you see, was well lit, as it had been all night, and the receptionist made a point of showing me the security camera positioned above her. She leant over and whispered these words: "We don't keep the tapes for long." So, that's something. Father Simon, I seek forgiveness from anyone who happened to be out in Torquay on that particular night and happened to look through the large plate glass window of one particular hotel, from the man in the nightgown who was woken to a rather unwelcoming sight, and from the security guard who had to watch the tapes through. Look, we've got another one here, another late-night visitor. Look at this, Madge. I don't know who Madge is. Anyway, it's Josh's story, missing his family as he was so much, but having such a great time while doing it.
Josh was obviously very, very tired, wasn't he? As he was wandering around. First of all, he locks himself out of his room. Then he knocks on the wrong... Then he goes down naked to the reception. Then he knocks on the wrong door, terrifying some poor man.
Yes.
And then he probably terrified Lloyd as well. I mean, honestly...
I quite like the fact he had a trial lie down on the stairs.
The trial lie down.
At what stage did you think lying naked on the stairs is going to be comfortable?
I wonder how long he did that for.
Yeah,
maybe 15 minutes. Anyway, I think it was all a bit messy, really, Josh, but I don't think you actually did any harm to anybody, so I'm going to forgive you.
Another broken microphone.
Do you want to use... You've got a wobbly appendage there.
There we are. I don't know what's going on with this.
Yes.
All right. You know, Josh is going to come in for a lot of flack here for the fact that he was naked, and which, you know, maybe he shouldn't have been naked. And I'm not surprised he got the wrong hotel. If he can't remember to put some pants on before going to the loo, then he's not going to remember what hotel room number he's in, what room number he's in. But I am going to say it's the hotel's fault for not having ensuite. What kind of hotel doesn't have ensuite? This isn't the 70s. What are you doing, putting the toilet down the corridor? Absolute joke. So for that, Josh, I am going to forgive you.
OK, novice Nigel is here. He's been learning at the feet of the masters.
Well, yes, I have. And I genuflect in all the right places because I have an elder brother, Doug, real name changed, because he has to be locked into his room and he's not allowed to sleep naked, certainly when he's away from his own home, for that very reason. And I think the couple who he did upset quite badly one night anyway, I think they're still in touch in a nice way. But yeah, he got into bed with the wrong people and has done all those terrible things.
Was he sleepwalking?
Oh yeah, he's been on balconies of hotels, not even his own room. Terrible stuff, and in wardrobes. Anyway,
he was missing his family so much.
Indeed, yeah. But 1994, playing pubs and pinball, and actually mobile phones would only just about come in then, wouldn't they? So he loves to go. Stumbled into phone boxes, I was thinking. But yeah, definitely forgiven. I also.
What's he talking about?
Where's the mobile phone coming?
Well, he did in 94. He said he was ringing his.
He's not got anywhere to keep the mobile phone.
No, not there. When he came back from the pub, having played pinball, he was saying, "Hello, I love you." Ringing
Nigel.
Anyway, I definitely forgive him. And the poor old guard who would have seen him because he'd sleeping on the floor, and that'd been terrible angles. And Wee Willie Winky Man, all of them.
All right.
Yeah.
Well done.
Time for tough choices now, because this... That doesn't work, really.
It's not. You tried to sell this, but it's not working.
In their swivel chairs, brother Matt, the Venerable Deadly, is here, and sister Rebecca. All having a go at tonight's confession, which comes from Ed. Thank you, Father Simon, and the Divine Ever-Forgiving Collective. This dates back to the winter of 1999, when, as a recently turned 22-year-old student, my main priorities involved, in addition to my studies, of course, socialising and generally wasting time with friends. My best mate at the time was Roger, and although we are no longer friends, we merely drifted apart. It is entirely possible that should he become aware of my actions and this confession, he may well hunt me down and seek retribution. Excuse me. On the evening in question, after the pub, the conversation drifted towards toys that we had enjoyed as kids, and the current location of said toys at the time of our conversation. Clearly we were having a rowdy night, says Ed. I stated that my favourite and most prized toys had been my Star Wars figures and figurines. Is a figurine a female figure? What is a figurine? Is it a small figure?
Plastic figure thing.
Yeah,
Yes,
on a
but
little
what's the
stand.
difference? Well, that's a figure.
I would have said
size.
I'd have said a figurine's bigger than a figure.
Figurine is bigger.
And I'd say a figurine as well is something that you would display.
I think a figurine is made of plastic.
I would say something else.
You've got
Okay.
no idea. Sorry I asked. Anyway, I lamented that my mother had given all of them away to the younger boy across the street when I was 11, and then on attending his house some months later, I saw that they lay damaged and soiled in the bottom of his wardrobe, never to be recovered, a topic that is still discussed to this day with my mother. On hearing my plight, Roger, who you might remember was my friend at the time, said, "Wait till you see what I've got in the loft," and proceeded up the stairs and into the roof cavity to retrieve his mystery item. I should say at this point that Roger was quite a show-off, and liked nothing more than displaying the things that he had and that others did not. Shortly after then, Roger bounced down the stairs and skipped into the living room with an immaculately maintained Jabba the Hutt figure in its original box from the 1983 film Return of the Jedi. Pardon?
It almost became a maculine. That,
Oh,
as you
just
said.
keep quiet at the back.
Very good.
To say that this was a rare item is an understatement. The figure itself was pristine, and it was removed from its box and handed very, very carefully around the room, treated with great delicacy and enormous reverence, like a Ming vase. Roger stood there in smug amusement and proceeded to show us other items he'd brought down from the loft. It is at this point that the night, for me anyway, descended into silent chaos. I was handed the Jabba figure and proceeded to look over the item very carefully whilst exploring the many facets it exhibited. I carefully moved the working parts and admired the paintwork and detail. It was wonderful. And then disaster struck. One of the arms snapped off in my hand. I didn't yank it or pull the limb too hard. I think that the decay of time and damp conditions in the loft had resulted in the brittleness in the plastic, coupled with the fact that anyone who knows the character will remember he had particularly small and stumpy arms. So it's actually Jabba the Hutt's fault in the first place. Panic took me, and after retaining my composure, I looked to see if the arm had merely come out of its socket or had sheared entirely. Sadly, the plastic had snapped, and there was no way of successfully reattaching the arm. It was broken, and it would soon be time to hand the figure back to Roger. Then a brainwave hit me. In attempting to simply push the arm back on, I noticed that it would hold for a short period of time if held at a particular angle and treated very carefully. So I pressed hard, and this is when the other arm came off. Oh, no. Oh, calamity. But I didn't give up. I pressed both separated limbs gently into place, and they stayed in position. In a biologically impossible position, but they stayed. Who knows what position that was? I looked over at Roger. "Hey, Rog, give me the box. I'll put it away for you," I said. Not smelling a rat, he handed me the box, and I quickly secreted the figure and the balanced, now broken arms away in its box while saying, "You'd better get this back out in about 50 years. Worth a fortune by then." And so it was that when he did send his collection to an auction a few years later, the auctioneer's assistant removed Jabba from his hut, and his arms fell off again. Cue the shocked gasps of the faithful, but this time there was no hiding, and its value plummeted in full view. The assistant apologised, but apparently it was ruled a second-class item, a third-class Jabba. Oh, the shame. Father Simon, I lay myself at the mercy of the collective and asked for forgiveness, not so much from Roger, who is no doubt now a successful individual who doesn't need the monetary benefit of the sale of a healthy Star Wars collectible, but from the many Star Wars collectors who will be no doubt at this moment disgusted by my desecration of such a rare item. I had no idea that a Jabba in its original hut.
It's not in a hut, is it?
No,
it's
not.
just
I
Jabba
mean,
the Hut, is its
yes,
name.
correct.
I'm having fun with it.
Please.
Okay, Jabba the Hutt in its box and cellophane with the price on it. Who knew it was going to be so valuable? Anyway, he snapped off the arms, and that.
I find it hard to believe that these things are rare. I mean, surely they're just mass-produced in a factory somewhere, and there are lots of them.
Is there no poetry in your soul?
No, clearly not. Also,
It's all about money and profit and gain, isn't it?
What's wrong with
Greed is good, as far as you're concerned. Sorry, carry on.
What's wrong with a little bit of glue? They could have just glued the arms back on, and it all would have been
Soiled.
fine.
It would be soiled, though.
Third rate.
I also think it's very odd that Ed didn't check Jabba the Hutt before he sent it to the auctioneer a few years later. Didn't he take
I
it out
think
of
it
the
was
box
still
and look at it?
But in the box, I think
He just
it was.
assumed that it would
The
be
arms
fine.
were in it. Strange.
Yeah.
Wasn't it
I think
It's Rogers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Roger.
All
Sorry.
the names
it
have
was
changed.
Rogers,
It could be
yes.
anybody.
The guy who owned the Jabba.
Jabba.
Anyway, I don't think it was Ed's fault because he said he didn't pull on the arms or anything. It would have happened to anyone who'd opened
Yes,
the Jabba the
well.
Hutt at that point. So Ed, you're completely forgiven.
Then dead.
No, he should have said at the time. Look what's happened. I'm terribly sorry. Look what's happened. Especially
What?
when the second one fell off. The arms.
He should just have owned up there and
Yeah,
then.
it's just easier. Just say it there and then. Because he's had to live with that all these years,
Yeah.
Matt. All these years.
And he's not his proper friend anyway, because they don't talk.
No,
anymore.
and I don't like Roger anyway, to be honest. He's a bit of a show-off. But even so, it was his Jabba, and therefore he should have been a little more honest. Sorry.
What do you say, Brother Matt?
I wouldn't have owned up. Does that make me a bad person?
Yes.
No. I've got a problem with Roger and his Star Wars figurines, and anyone who bought these Star Wars figures and then, and then didn't take them out of the box. I'm going to keep them in the box and never play with them. And what's the point of that?
They're worth more if you do that.
Who buys Star Wars figures not to play with them? The wrong kind of person. That's who. And also, I tried doing this myself when the new Star Wars movies came out. I bought like 100 quid's worth of Star Wars figures thinking they were going to rocket in price. So it sadly turns out that the films were pants and therefore no one's interested in my Star Wars
So
figures.
more fool you.
Those all ended up in charity shops. So I say I am going to forgive.
He's a bitter man. He's a bitter
Yeah.
man just because you squandered.
Yeah,
As a kid, what were you
waste of time that was.
100 quid.
Exactly,
On plastic
100 quid on
figurines.
plastic
Are you
figurines.
mad?
I was mad.
Were they figures or figurines?
Figures.
They were our confessions for this week. Let us know yours, and we all know that you've got a stinker waiting to be sent to confessions@bbc.co.uk. We'll have more for you next week. Don't forget to download the Weekly Mayo, available now and every Thursday. Thank you.